Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Huck. Today I'm doing my winter TBR, so these are going to be some of the books that I would like to especially read in December, January, and February. But before I dive into that, I want to go over the books that I talked about for my fall TBR. So I only recently started doing these seasonal TBRs. The fall was the first time that I did this, and I just wanted to test out how that would work, because TBRs are always kind of like a hit and miss thing for me. But I actually really liked having a seasonal TBR where I picked 6 books for over the course of 3 months, and I think that worked well, so I'm going to do it again. But I want to talk about the books that I had on my fall TBR and how I did with that. So in the fall TBR, I had Vengeful by V.E. Schwab. I also had Sweet Black Waves by Christina Perez, The Lost Queen by Signe Pike, The Queens of Innisleer by Tessa Gratton, The Golden Fool by Robin Hobb, and Foundryside by Robert Jackson Bennett. So of those, I completed 3 of them. I DNF'd 1, and one of them I'm actually currently reading. So there's only really one that I kind of feel like I totally did not get to. So starting with the books that I did complete in the fall, in September I read The Lost Queen by Signe Pike, and I absolutely loved this book. I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. Then in October I read Vengeful by V.E. Schwab, and I gave this one like 3.5 out of 5 stars. And the last one that I've completed is Foundryside by Robert Jackson Bennett. I read this in November. I gave it, I think, 4 out of 5 stars. Like the first half of the book was 3 stars, the second half of the book was 5 stars, so I gave it a 4. Then the book that I DNF'd was Sweet Black Waves by Christina Perez, which I still count this as a success because at least I made a decision about this book, so it's not on my TBR shelf anymore. And I am currently reading The Queens of Innisleer by Tessa Gratton. I just started this one. I've read like 4 pages of it, but I still, I'm reading it in December, but I'm still at least getting to it this year, if just a little bit late. And the one that I totally didn't get to at all was The Golden Fool by Robin Hobb. I think that I'm just gonna have to accept that I'm not finishing this series this year. My original plan was to read the entire Tawny Man trilogy in 2019, but I think I got started too late, and then I just have not been in the mood to continue reading it, so this is probably gonna have to roll over to 2020. So now we're on to the books that I would like to read this winter, which is December, January, and February. So the first book that I have here is Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. I would actually really like to read this in December, hopefully, before the end of 2019. But this is a standalone fantasy Rumpelstiltskin retelling. I've read Uprooted by Naomi Novik and really liked it, and I'm really looking forward to this one. I've kind of been putting it off for 2 reasons. One being that I know that the main character in this is Jewish, which I'm very excited about because I have been looking for Jewish rep in fantasy books, but I'm also very apprehensive about because I feel like it's so rarely done well and I just don't want to be disappointed. So even though I'm excited about it, I've kind of been putting it off because of that, but also because this is in a very wintry setting, and wintry settings just generally don't appeal to me that much. I have not come across a book in a wintry setting that I've really liked that setting, so it's just never one that's really enticed me. But I thought, you know, reading it in the winter, I'm not a big seasonal reader, but maybe reading it in the winter will make me like that setting more. Who knows? We'll find out. Maybe I'll become a seasonal reader. We never know. Next, I have The Raven and the Reindeer by T. Kingfisher, and this one is actually pretty short compared to everything else on this list. The rest of the books on this list are all pretty long, so I'm glad that I have at least one that is kind of short. This is kind of a dark retelling of The Snow Queen. So it is another fairy tale retelling, and actually, I'm realizing another one that has kind of a wintry setting probably to it. So I guess maybe this year I'm just trying to get a lot of my wintry setting books kind of out of the way, since I usually buy them and don't read them. And with that being said, speaking of wintry books, I have A Winter's Promise by Christelle Zavos. I've heard that this doesn't actually have a winter setting, it just has winter in the name. But this is following our main character Ophelia. She has a political marriage, so she goes off to her husband's lands to live there, and she has to kind of figure out the politics and everything that is happening there. This sounds like it's going to be both very political and very whimsical, I think. At least I feel like the cover is very whimsical. And I've heard a lot of people really, really love this, and that a lot of people are saying that it's not quite like anything else that they've read, so I'm very intrigued by that also. Next, I have Beasts of the Frozen Sun by Jill Criswell. This is in a Norse-inspired fantasy world. There are two like warring clans, I think. We're following this girl who then discovers the washed up body of a warrior from not her own clan, but from the other clan that they're at war with. She discovers that the body, that he's actually still alive, and she decides to try and nurse him back to health. And then the two of them, I think, discover that there are like larger things at stake, that they have to join forces to save their people. And I actually found out about this from Juliet Marillier. She blurbed this and she talked about it on her Facebook page, so I kind of wanted to try it because of that. I also just think it sounds interesting, and there's like a healing element to it, so love that. And this one is actually also not super long. I think it's like 330 pages, which for a fantasy book is pretty short. So hopefully that works in its favor and doesn't work against it, because sometimes with fantasy, it can really go either way. Next, I have The 13th Tale by Diane Setterfield. And this is one that has come up on a lot of lists when I was looking for books about books. This one is not exactly about books, but it is following an author. So there's this fictional author who's very prolific, very famous, and at the end of her life she decides that she wants to finally tell her own life story, and so she hires somebody to kind of write her life story, and so this is her telling her story for her memoir. And I think that this sounds like it will hopefully be interesting, but I've also just heard really good things about it from people on BookTube and from a friend of mine in real life. So I really want to get to this one also very soon. And the last one on this list is The Lies of Locke Lamora by Scott Lynch. And this is probably also going to be on my 2020 TBR because I am determined to read this book soon. So this is a sneak peek at that video that will be coming out probably in January. That is my 2020 TBR. Anyways, so this is one that I've heard a lot of really great things about it on BookTube. It is a heist story. It's following this band of thieves. I've heard that it has really great like found family and just really great friendships in it. And a lot of people have described it as like a more grown-up version of Six of Crows. So that also appeals to me. And I've just heard that it's like very character focused, and that also that there are a lot of flashbacks in this, which I think is interesting. And some people really hate that and some people don't. I don't mind flashbacks. I actually kind of like non-linear storytelling, so I'm intrigued how that's gonna work out for me. But also I love like really good character dynamics. I love good like friendships that you can just get really invested in, so I'm hoping that I'm really gonna love this. I also am starting to think that maybe I just like heist stories because I really love Six of Crows, and because also Foundryside ended up being kind of a heist story and I really enjoyed that too, so maybe I just like heists. So those are all of the books that I would like to read this winter. It actually ended up being a much more like wintry themed list than I expected. I didn't do that on purpose, and I really only realized as I was talking about them that quite a few of these are like wintry themed, so that's interesting. And hopefully I will really enjoy reading these wintry books in the winter. You know, we'll see if that works out. But thank you all for watching, and until next time, bye!